Alfred, brother, it's so awesome to have you here with us on a jam session with one of the guys in the inner circle. You and I obviously only met about a year ago when you were remote jumping into a lake just outside Edmonton, and Mike and I were in the river. I think, were you our first remote guest on the Cold Plunge Truth?
Yes, sir.
I think you were.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so epic, man. I was looking back on some of those clips the other day too, and you had brought your buddy in with you as well too, which is awesome. I'm curious, actually, what's that guy up to nowadays too? What was his name again?
His name's Ted. He's actually one of my neighbors. He's still into the cold plunging stuff. He's always bugging me, and we actually went out to the lake. I think I shared some stuff with you guys over the holidays. We cut a hole in that same lake, but on the other side of it,
Yes,
a newfound friend of a friend owns a lake lot there, and we cut a big hole in the lake. And yeah, so he actually reached out to me early January and asked me what I was up to, and that's when kind of this whole inner circle thing was beginning and kind of transpiring, and logistics were being figured out. And he reached out to me just out of the blue. He's like, I got a lot on my plate. Holidays were rough. We need to get cold. I'm like, dude, I've been getting cold tons. Let's go. I was like, fantastic. So he came out one day, and yeah, he crushed it, actually. It was funny. I had 2 consecutive plunge days about 4 days apart where I struggled. I only lasted about maybe 90 seconds, where normally I'm about a 5 to 7 minute guy in sub-zero water. It's a struggle to get that far, but I really enjoy pushing myself. And yeah, I had a hard time. He went 8 minutes, and he killed it. And then it was funny. The one guy we went with, Justin, on Boxing Day was the first day we cut the hole in the lake, and I shared that stuff in the betterman community over the holidays on Facebook there. Excuse me. And that on New Year's Day, so we went a couple days, and it was only the same 4 guys every day. And then on New Year's Day, there was like 30 people that went in this small little square. It was everybody's wives, kids, neighbors. Everybody was like, man, these guys have been crazy for 5 days. Let's see what crazy looks like. And we're like, come on in. And it was funny. Justin's kids, they're in their mid-teens. They went 10 minutes. Their very first time in 1 degree water, and Justin didn't hear the end of it for 2 weeks. He said, I need you out here because we got to go long. So I brought Ted. We went out. I only lasted like 2 minutes. Ted lasted 8, and Justin fucking went 12 and a half minutes, and then he dunked at the end of it for 30 seconds. Like, and he's just like, I'm like, you got to be careful playing like competitive games in this. You can really ride the danger threshold, but yeah, it was insane to see what people can do when they put their mind to stuff. It was pretty powerful.
Oh, that's so cool, especially when families get involved, right? It's Trev and I can both attest. We've had our kids, started with putting a hand in, a foot in, and then they've both gotten up to waist and stuff like that for periods of time. It's just so cool to see. It's the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about that too, because it's so fitting to everything that we've all been co-creating along here. Because Mike and I jumped in the river initially and started doing all these things, and then this inner circle popped up and everything. But when it comes to the extreme activities as guys, we'll go, right? And especially it's the ones that are even with no experience that will a lot of times jump into the cold and last, just straight adrenaline and machoism, right? Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that I admire most about you, and then what I've got to know about you, Alfred, is just how you've leaned into the other aspects of extreme, of like, tapping into the emotional side of who is Alfred and what does he want in this world and how does he want to show up, and what does he want his relationship to be like, and as a dad, and in your business, and how you make money, and how you spend your time, and all of those things, because that's what we really ultimately are talking about here, right? When we say extreme, it's easy to go. It's not easy, but it's easy to go climb mountains and jump in cold water and jump out of planes, right? You just got to get the bravery and be around enough people that'll kind of push you to do that. But maybe if you want to speak, man, because we just want to give you the open floor here. Talk about your journey to get to this place and take it wherever you want, but maybe speak about the Alfred that I met back then and who is here today talking to us.
Yeah, well, that's actually 3 parts, really. The Alfred before we first met, and it's funny, we're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary here of that Cold Plunge Truth episode.
Pretty close
for first week April.
Yep.
So before that time, I can honestly say there was about a decade. From the time I graduated college to the time just before that, I was in a hamster wheel, man. I literally worked, worked as much overtime as I could. I didn't adjust anything in my life. I didn't adjust how I spent, how I invested, my marriage. It went from dating to engaged to marriage, but like really like our relationship as a couple and as a team never changed. It was the same. And there was just times that like I was just so convinced that this is the life path. This is what was destined for me. I was like, and it's not bad. It's definitely a step up from what I grew up with. We came up from nothing. I think I mentioned it in one of our group chats there when you guys gave us the open floor to just give us a quick 10-minute synopsis of our life. I went to 14 different schools as a kid, halfway houses. Like, that's the one common theme that we have in this inner circle is everyone has trauma to a degree, right? Everyone has, a tainted past or, still dealing with that baggage to a degree. So yeah, that 10 years was very subpar, same friends, same activities. And I just started getting tired of it, man. I got to a point where I started observing other people, not necessarily befriending them, but observing people making substantial changes. And I remember when I first met Mike was that rah-rah, flyboard, high energy, zero sleep, and function on not much. Man, we had a collective of people like that, and that's kind of what set it off for me is seeing these people that come from similar, struggles, not in it for the money, not in it for, the fame. It's passion. Passion drove us. And it was not only passion for a sport, a counterculture sport, which obviously attracted me to it, but it was a passion to just enjoy and live to the max. Work hard, play hard. And I think actually a mutual friend of ours, Brody, said it. He's like, the only place that play comes before work is in the dictionary. And he said that to me, actually. I remember that very vividly.
It's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what kicked it off for me. So probably from about 2008 to 2018, really my life was pretty, there was a summer business that I started similar to what Mike has. But other than that, there wasn't, much in my personal life, exploring emotion, accepting addiction to vice, whatever that may be. Everyone's got their own thing, but that just the false narrative that life is about making it as comfortable as possible, right? The easy way out. There's always an app to make it more efficient. There's always something to make something more comfortable, and everything has a price. And that's when you realize the marketing aspect of it is everything that's geared to give you comfort is sold to you. The things that aren't sold to you is what's fucking hard to do, right? You don't need to sell people on that. When people are ready to get there naturally, they'll just go. And it's whatever it is. Go hike, do extreme sports, jump off a cliff. But eventually you start searching for that because comfort gets boring. Comfort gets to a point where it just doesn't do anything. There's no fulfillment in it. There's no growth in it. There's no nothing. So I finally got to the point where my wife and I needed to make a change. And it was right around the time my daughter was diagnosed with special needs. She has a few comorbidities that require her a little additional attention. But that's when I started seeing that I don't have a choice but to be my highest performing self for my family. It's no longer an option. We don't come from a position of a privileged past or an inherited past. We have to grow and move on whether we like it or not. And so that was really a turning point for me around the 2019, just before COVID type stuff, was I was kind of exploring that avenue. What do I want to do? Do I want to do, health and fitness? And, I'm a very big rookie when it comes to this even today, but back then I was knocking on every door, exploring tons of options. And then, when COVID hit, it was so easy for me to just fall back on my unconscious habits of drink, comfort, sleep in, no schedule, no routine, no discipline, no nothing. It was so easy, right? Because I was at home. I was bored. Everything was on lockdown. It was like, no, you can't do this. Until finally a person realizes, well, I can, and it doesn't matter who tells me not. I'm just going to do my own thing, whatever that is. And right around the middle of COVID is kind of when that started, about 2021, early 2022. And it's funny, I reminisced on this actually with my wife because she asked me a similar question. She's like, what got you into this? Like why did you make that leap? And I remember me and Mike would talk pretty consistently, over social media and stuff. And then he went dark for about 6 months. And I didn't really know what was going on, right? I mean, I never really asked questions, and I'm not one to pry either. I don't bulge in other people's business. That's their own shit, right? If people want to share, they'll share. Same thing with me. A lot of people ask me, "What are you up to?" It's like, "Oh, I've been doing this side business for 6 years." Really? It's like, yeah, I just don't put it out there. I just do my thing. And then Mike started, kind of showing up again, but way different, like completely different. Like, with your creator, your content, your exposure. I'm not gonna lie, the old Alfred look at that and be like, man, this guy's like, man, what kind of, what Kool-Aid did this cat drink? Because something weird. And the message was consistent. You were never pushy, which was super refreshing. And I've mentioned this to you guys as well. This is not something you're ramming down throats. It's not that, hey, click affiliate links below, 10% off, la la la. None of that crap. It's just you live by showing up. So it certainly piqued my interest. And the first time I seen cold exposure was shortly after Mike started coming back on, is when this movement started with Wim Hof. There's a Yes Theory video. They were a channel. I found their channel through that video of just YouTube surfing one night. And I'm like, it's fucking cold water. Like, what's that going to do? That's dumb. I was like, it's not backed by pharmaceutical companies. It's not sanctioned by the FDA. This can't be real. This can't have benefits. And then I did it. And I was like, holy shit. This is crazy. It's one of the only things I've experienced that right away, the first time you do it, you feel a change. You don't go from 0 to 60 in one exposure, but you feel the difference. You feel your body. You feel the recovery. You feel the superpower of when you come out and you're partially numb or fully numb, that you feel nothing. You don't feel the wind. You don't feel the rocks under your feet. You don't feel nothing. That's a superpower. Like, it actually makes you feel like Superman. It truly does. And I was hooked. So that moment from early 2022, basically being an observer for about 3 to 4 months, and then in April, when you guys were doing the cold plunge truth, and I'm like, man, I'm in. I've always kind of considered myself a yes man, but like that's when it really started for me. And yeah, when you guys had me on, and me and Ted, we were buzzing for like a week after that. We were just like,
Let's do it again.
Yeah, like people's phones listen to them and shit. So like, of course, I'm on my phone and got fucking water chillers, cold plunge retreats, all this shit's popping up on my phone, which is cool because like, again, like I'm only gonna buy into something both physically and mentally if it speaks to me. That's just the way it is for me. And yeah, I just kept researching, exposing, asking questions, and that was the thing, is you guys were consistent, and that's a pat on your guys' back, is the message never changed and the consistency never wavered, and that speaks volumes, because that is a recipe for success in everything you do, not just what we have, not just what you have personally. Everything, family, business, personal, hobbies, you name it. If you're consistent and you're passionate about it, the people will come. And man, the proof's in the pudding with you guys. So kudos to you.
Thank you, brother. That's what's our motto always been, Trev, when we started this thing.
Exactly what you just said. We'd do it even if nobody showed up. And that's a testament to what you're saying right there. Yeah, there's no doubt. I wanted to dig a little bit too, Alfred, because I wore this hat on purpose here today, partially because it's kind of comfy and I like it, but also there's a message on here that I know you and I both really attached to. And I know, Mike, you had pieces of it too, but I don't think you felt and expressed the anger outward as much as maybe Alfred and I did. But I think that's another important thing to address here for other guys that might be watching this and thinking, how do I show up in this world and create everything I desire when it seems like everything around me is absolutely insane and against me being a better version of myself? Do you want to maybe speak to that, man, in your journey? Because I know you're still in it, just like I am too, right? There's things that irritate us, and even our mornings, the way that they started today, are a reflection of that. But just speak to that, man, because I think there's something powerful there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of part of my growth too, is, I'll go back to those 10 years is, I wasn't really living my life. I was allowing external forces to dictate my actions and my beliefs, right? And I remember a big tipping point was when Trump got elected. That was a big one for me because I was somewhat political to a degree because, of course, in today's day and age, especially in Western culture, people identify by who they vote for. Like that. That's how people like. Oh, I'm a Democratic, whatever, or I'm a Republican activist, or it's kind of fucked in my opinion. Like that's crazy. That's the first thing that comes to mind when you want to introduce yourself, and that was a polarizing moment for me. Those 4 years, I became extremely rigid. That's the word I use to describe myself, because that's people gave me that feedback. Is I was dealing with anything in my life with a sledgehammer. Is people that would call out, actions that I took or didn't take, and they would say you're wrong, and without asking my motivations, without asking my reasonings, without asking nothing. People take their personal agendas and question why you do certain things or don't do certain things. That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. And going back to the small fringe minority, I actually have a signed hat by Ted Nugent about the firearm bullshit
going on
in Canada right now. Yeah, my uncle got it from Ontario. It's signed and everything. And that's the thing, man, is we preach about democracy and freedom and all this crap. Man, there's never been a bigger lie told. It really is a sham, because even in today's day and age, you don't got it. And so I became a rigid figure because I felt I had to push back because people were giving me their narratives. I followed every political page. I made sure that anybody who made a social media post that I didn't agree with, I had to be heard. And it was the most mentally exhausting 4 years of my life. It was to the point where I was drinking tons. My marriage was not good because it consumed me. We'd be at the dinner table and I would just go into like a hate message and write a fucking dictionary on a person's post saying, fuck Donald Trump. And I would just go off and be like, this person did that, this person did that. And finally when it ended and there was that old polarizing stuff around the 2020 election, I was gassed. I'm just like, I don't have the stamina for this. I was at my heaviest I've ever been. I had no diet. And I started realizing that I was replacing anything that could even give me a measurable improvement in my life with that shit. And finally, I don't know what the epiphany moment was. I think it was kind of over a little bit of time. And then COVID came. And I'm not going to lie, we bought into COVID the day it happened. I have a daughter she was on anti-seizure medication at the time, multiple comorbidities. I was like, you know what, for her, for grandparents, we're going to do it. The month of April of 2020, we fucking locked down in our house. We didn't move. No school, no hospital, no events, no nothing. We even had groceries delivered to our house. We wouldn't even go to the grocery store. So we kind of quasi did our part. Or as they said in Alberta, 4 weeks to what is it, to something the curve, to stop
flatten
the
the
curve.
curve.
Or flatten the curve, thank you. And so we're like, we did our part. And then I noticed that they kept moving the benchmark, right? You start seeing these small lies that are compounding and the hypocrisy, but because it's coming from a position of authority, you can't call out hypocrisy because it's all bullshit. And so it's like, 4 weeks to flatten the curve. Okay, well now we're going to fast track this vaccination that, we're going to fast track this vaccination, but only get it if you need to. Okay, well, elderly, sick people, sure, yeah. I've never had a flu shot in my life, so the chances of me getting a needle was 0% as it was. and then it kept changing, and finally it was, no, you got to get vaccinated to keep your job. And that was it. Boom. The moment that happened, I was like, there's no way that's happening. Absolutely not. And that moment when that happened, before the vaccination, when they were questioning it in the U.S., and they were saying, Trump can't push through the vaccination. It takes 5 years to get this approved. People are going to die on the streets. Then they push it through, change of presidency, and now it's all, and same thing in Alberta. We had a change in government, and same thing. And I'm just like, okay, something's not right. This doesn't make sense. And it was that moment when they said you got to do it to keep your job. You can't travel, lock down the economy, small fringe minority. You got to lose your job to save people. Man, I was just like, nope. And I'm telling you, that moment I deleted, I think I had 300 people on my social media platforms combined. I'm now down to like 32. and I unfollowed every page. I just disappeared. I couldn't handle it anymore. It was consuming my life. And now, hindsight 2020, but I'm glad I took the action midway through that pandemic and also before then. But you start to realize that they're literally playing puppeteer. They're just pulling the strings on the fabric of society in whatever direction either makes the most amount of money or causes the most amount of chaos. And finally, it became very, very clear to me that I just need to do me and what's best for my family, and the rest can do whatever. And it's that individualized freedom that before I can speak to your freedom or the freedom of a province or a country or a people, man, if I'm not living my true self and my true freedom and my purpose, how the hell can I come off with the audacity to tell other people how to do it? That's the definition of hypocrisy. So I knew right away I had to do me first before I could tell anybody else what to do. And it's hilarious because that was my original statement to myself and my brain. But when you start doing yourself and doing you, you actually stop caring what other people think and if they do what you want to or not. You just do you because you're the most fulfilled you can be. So other people's acceptance or unacceptance of it becomes irrelevant. And that's truly where I'm at right now, is I'm just choosing to surround myself with positive, like-minded, great people with similar backgrounds, similar issues, and even different issues, because diversity is very key. I want to learn from people that have experienced things I've never experienced, or learn, business from people that are in a space that I've never exposed myself to before. And that's where the power is. The power is once you reach that tipping point where external forces no longer influence you and matter to you, you honestly you discover yourself, whether that's art, whether that's, a passion, whether that's sports. It doesn't matter. You're the most fulfilled you can be. And that's when all that other stuff just melts away. And it was so important for me because I was super passionate about that protest in Canada. And when I seen the political shutdown that occurred, I actually have a coworker that got their bank account frozen for donating $50 because when the jackass that runs this country, when he declared that Emergencies Act and they started are you actually serious? Like that's what I was looking at. I'm like, this can't be happening. And then again, I went back into that. Okay, this is actually starting to consume me. It's starting to become a problem. Mm-hmm. And once you realize that you just do you, and the people that surround you, that's what matters. I will preface that with you also have to be okay with losing people. You will shed the weight of anybody who's dragging you down at your ankles. And that's truly what it is, regardless, family, friends, coworkers, doesn't matter. If they're not, and they don't need to be exactly like you. I'm not trying to be rigid in that statement. I'm not trying to say they can't have differing opinions. But I'm saying that a great way to summarize it is if people think that we're in an or world and not an and world, I can't associate with you. We can have your idea and my idea. It's not your idea or my idea. It's an and world. And anybody who lives in the or, I can't associate with, because that's the most polarizing, most rigid people, and that's what I was years ago. I can't do it because it's exhausting. And so yeah, that protest and that whole, and it's still going on today. We're experiencing it with guns and supply chain and all this other crap, and the hypocrisy of him as well. And not just him. I'll say all political leaders. I used to identify conservative. I used to identify liberal when I grew up because I grew up in a liberal province. Now I identify, honestly, anarchist. Like if you were to ask me my political affiliation, that would legitimate be my statement. Is any sort of world government or governing body, to me, is asinine. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. So I just disapprove of all of it. Anybody who tells me how I have to or should live my life is a jackass, and I just move on from that as quickly as possible because that's crazy, right? Like how can you come off with that without ever knowing me? It's different if you know what I'm doing and I get called out, like let's say from you guys, if I started veering off the course a little bit in this growth that we've done. That's called accountability. That's called, inner circle. That's that's different. You know me intimately to be able to have that sort of feedback, and I can accept it with love. It's different if you don't know me. You only see the tip of the iceberg, and you feel like you have the right or the authority to tell me what I can or cannot do. to me, I can't do that. That's just completely crazy.
I love it. And
There's
it's,
a few.
go ahead, Trevi.
Mike. No, you got it. You got it.
No, I was just going to say, you got me at the end there. I loved your end or your or comment, because it's a world that I live in so much as well. And I think it's so important with what we've been through in the last few years and all the conversations we've had and what we saw happen and where we're at today. Right. And I love that you acknowledge that's where you came from, because it is what I was thinking. And I was like, it's been so beautiful to watch your evolution, truly. And I'll tell you, when Trev and I first started talking about you and your interest in coming in, even I was like, yeah, he used to be so rigid and he used to have these strong opinions. I used to stray away from your posts, even when I wanted to comment on them. I was like, nah, I'm not going near that. Yeah. And so it's truly been amazing to watch the evolution, and it's, we see it week by week still. You're just getting more in this direction of the openness, the acceptance, the love, and diving deep on the areas that we do. And it's been incredible to watch to come from that to this. And man, I applaud you for that. It's been amazing to have you a part of the journey.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind for me on that too. There's a few phrases. One is that lone wolf syndrome as a part of this process and the journey. And then the other one is the hero's journey. So when I hear you talking about that, when you finally hit the point where you were saying, all right, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is absolutely draining me. Everything around me is falling apart. I'm falling apart. What do we do as men typically? We go quiet, right? We just focus on ourselves, which is good, but it's also not the answer. And that's what we found in finding each other too, and being able to open up, because a lot of times we want to just go at this on our own. And then the second piece there about the hero's journey, it's just so fascinating, because I'm listening to you talk about this even too. And even as my journey is unfolding and Mike's is unfolding, we think, where are we in this journey? Was that the dragon moments where we had to go and slay that dragon, where, we saw that if we stayed down this path that we'd probably have a heart attack, or we'd end up, our marriage would fall apart, or our family would fall apart, or whatever. Or are we just facing that right now because we're leaning into really hard stuff together and having honest, vulnerable conversations, including ones that's where we don't all agree all the time? Like just a couple of days ago in the WhatsApp group, we had some healthy conflict, you would call it, right? Where it became an and conversation instead of an or one, like you're saying, Alfred, right? And it just keeps defining every single day. And I think that's the part of this that becomes exciting when you get to the point of your own journey where you remember where you hit rock bottom and said, never again. And then you start climbing out by yourself. You don't accept any hands even. You're like, I got this. Just leave me alone, And then eventually you start accepting the hands. And then you see how quickly we climb out of this bucket together. And it's messy though, man. Like, to use that metaphor, we're all in a big hole and climbing our way out right now and looking up at that sunshine. And speaking of sunshine, you're going to be down here in Costa Rica here one of these days, pretty soon here too.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yep, about 20
I'm
days.
heading down a little early, so you guys sent me an email today saying 30 days away. I'm like, nah, no sir. I was like, no.
Yeah, a little quicker for you.
Earlier. Yeah, no, I was pretty stoked I could make that work logistically. So that was pretty awesome for me. So yeah, it took a little bit. I mean, obviously leaving my family is a bit tough. My wife is she's got the wanderlust bug a lot more than me, and that's a country neither of us have ever been to. So it is a long journey for flight-wise and travel-wise, so I'm excited to kind of scope it out and see what everything looks like. And then I certainly have plans to take my wife there. I have yet to meet somebody who's been there that hasn't said it's like one of the greatest places they've ever been. And it's funny because, again, until I joined this group, I knew where Costa Rica was, and I heard great things about it, but I had never even thought it was a possibility because I just... the length of travel was very difficult family-wise. Now that my daughter's getting older, she handles travel quite well. So it's a situation that I can certainly see ourselves going down there. But yeah, then this came up. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's definitely within reach. And then when you move down there, of course, you're on there and you're like, oh, the boys. Then I look and I'm like, and then you're like, oh, your old bacon here is 37 degrees. I'm like, throw my phone down. I look outside, it's minus 20. It's like, I was like, damn. I was like, that sounds amazing. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It's going to be a great journey, and I kind of have some individual stuff booked as well. Some stuff that I discovered just researching Costa Rica and things to do, the quasi-tourist thing. But there's also some cool experiences. Like one of the things I want to do is in La Fortuna there by Mount Arnell, there's a cacao farm, and they show you how from start to finish the whole process. And you go out and do it. You got like a big homemade weave basket around. You pull the cacao pod. They show you how to ferment the beans and do all this stuff. And yeah,
Cool.
It's pretty neat. So I think that's really grassroots stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's really cool. Well, we're excited. We've got a lot of amazing, exciting things planned. Before we dive a little bit more into the retreat, because obviously we got to talk about what's happening there, but we've learned, kind of where you came from a little bit, right? And where you're at right now. What's your desire in this growth journey? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to take it to? Tell us a little bit more about your why and where you're aiming.
Yeah, I think my why is pretty self-evident in the sense of I was kind of in a dark place. And a lot of times, you become a product of your environment, right? Your environment dictates a lot of what you do, your social circles, your work atmosphere, your personal habits, everything. So when I say I was in a dark place, I wasn't in a dark place in one particular fashion. It was just a culmination of just a lot of micro actions in the negative, booze, no habit, no regiment of diet, and it's not even, everyone's like, oh, you didn't have a diet plan. It's like, I didn't care. I ate whatever the fuck I wanted to eat. And it was that seeking of comfort. So when I discovered this space and others too, like there's a lot of social platforms, Instagram pages that really help me out. But I mean, obviously this is where my focus is. My why was just to get better, and I just realized really quickly when I started transitioning around the rigidity, when I started transitioning away from that, those toxic social circles of the gossip, all that stuff, I realized that I can make small changes in a lot of different areas. That way it doesn't feel like I'm climbing Everest. It doesn't feel like I need to go from weighing 225 at my heaviest to having six-pack like Mike. No, I'm not going to try to do that. I'm going to make small incremental changes. Yeah, I made that comment on the cold plunge truth. There is hilarious. I'm out there with my big pudge, and he's just there, just jacked. I'm like, man.
Hey, dude, I was self-conscious too. I told Mike that the first time I met him too. That was one of the things that held me back from actually reaching out to like connect and really make buddies with him too. I was like, man, this guy's in way better shape than I am. I'm gonna have to get off my ass here a little bit if I want to keep up. But that's real though too, like I'm glad that we're saying that out loud, because I know we've got buddies even that came into the betterman community too that I think are shying away a little bit because they feel like they're just so far behind. But we're here to tell you, dude, we started there too. It's called ground zero. Like let's go up, let's climb, let's lower the bar and just get you moving in the right direction. So, but anyways, continue.
Yeah, I didn't mean to go off there, but yeah, basically what I was thinking is I knew just before getting into the space that Rome wasn't built in a day, and it also wasn't built by making one change. It has to be a lot of small changes, because that's what drives momentum, right? If I can learn to do, like, I'll give an example. When I first joined the Inner Circle, 8 push-ups was the most I could do consecutively. Now that's full up, full down. Like, I really tried to focus on form. That was 8. After that, I could probably squeeze out 9. Literally 45 days later, I'm doing 30. So that's a 3x increase, 3.5x increase. And that gives a person momentum that now I enjoy the journey. Now I enjoy setting my own new bar. And the cold is a great example, because that's a great starting point for a lot of people. There's a lot of people say, oh, I can only go in for 30 seconds. Do you know how easy it is, if you can just get past the mental blocker, to double your progress, to go to 60 seconds? 60 seconds is not a lot of time. And it's all mental. So when you can self-improve that much, that exponentially, it's an avalanche of momentum. And so those are 2 examples I can give, and then there's other ones. Like, again, I've been pretty resistant to breath work. I think from more of an optics than a doing, because I do know the benefits, and I went on that Wim Hof workshop and learned a lot about the science behind it, a lot about the physiology behind it and what you can expect to feel. It's different for everybody, but there are some consistencies and desired outcomes you want to get from that breath work. But it's all these small changes, and that for me is what's really allowed me to hold on and really be not, I don't want to say consistent because I've had days that I waver, but just enjoy the process. Because it's a situation where if I have 10 goals for the day and I smash 6 of them, but there's 10 that I can improve on, I'm still gaining momentum. I can still better. And then on the flip, let's say the next day I get 6 as well. Well, I haven't made any progress, but I did stuff that I didn't do yesterday, so I'm growing. And there's that seesaw battle where, you know, you'll hear a lot of people in today's space that say you got to get better every day. It's like, and a lot of times in mentally that goes for, okay, well, I have to do more push-ups every single day. No. It's focus on a lot of minor changes, and then when you get tired or you've plateaued or you feel like, you know, you're not quite there, you can focus on another small space and continue that momentum and continue that gratification of really improving and getting better. And so that's been really good for me. Go back to the original question, where do I see myself in the future? To be honest, I don't know. I haven't really set a goal for myself because I'm curious to see how far I can take this. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I want to try to focus on this. But I do know that my future looks brighter and I'm more fucking jacked for it than I ever have been. Not just for me, but for my career, for my business, for my family. I'm just fucking stoked. And I'm an open door in the sense of whatever comes. You know, you guys are really great at saying just surrender to it. And I kind of have that mentality right now, is I'm just kind of surrendering to that process. I don't know what the future holds, and that's just the truth. I don't have a clear goal or a clear, you know, direction that I want to set myself out in. And I know that's probably going to hurt me to a degree. But I just know that if I just continue to improve and just show up for myself, that it's just going to be nothing but good stuff. And also, when shit goes wrong, I'm going to be way better prepared for it, which in turn is going to improve me in the long run as well.
That's beautiful, brother.
Yeah, and that's
Perfect
ultimately where we get tested too, right? I know we were chatting before we hopped on this call and we alluded to it a little bit at the start, but you know, for anybody that's watching this, that's feeling the rah-rah of like, wow, these guys are really up to big shit here and they're making it happen. Man, I had a challenging morning this morning with my kids. I know you did, Alfred. I think Mike's day started off a little better today, but he was talking to the teachers or the kids' teacher yesterday about an incident, you know, like we're living real life here. And I think this is where we get to celebrate these small micro wins though, too, is that when these situations come up, where in the past we might have just met it straight up with resistance and anger and frustration and pushback and I'm going to win, you're going to lose. We're now slowing down enough to at least be aware of what's going on and how we used to show up and how we're choosing to show up now. And that's not to say that we're perfect all the time, because each one of us will honestly say that, like, man, we slip up all the time, you know? Like, I raise my voice at my kids and then very quickly realize, damn, I better go apologize for that. I didn't apologize before. I just kind of think, well, they're just being little jerks right now and they deserve to get yelled at by daddy. But now I understand how important it is that we show up with that vulnerability and lead with love, right? And it's not easy in every single moment. And maybe you guys want to riff on your own personal experience with that, and we'll maybe end it with that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point though, Trev. Like I know my default used to be like, oh, I'll have a drink, I need to chill out, or I would come downstairs to my office and I would work more because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm working more, so I'm producing more. So leave me alone. You take care of the kids, you know, but I'm still telling myself I'm contributing because I'm working, but really I'm avoiding the other things that are happening, right? And absolutely, I resonate with the kid thing or the conversations, if challenges with my wife. I wouldn't think and observe my actions to know I should go back and apologize or have those conversations or talk it out. And that's, you know, what happens now. Even if I'm exhausted, even if I'm tired and I don't want to face it, it's we all know that's the path of growth.
Just got to show up.
Yep.
That's half of it.
Yeah, I think differing opinions and methods to getting to a same desired outcome, I would say, you know, most people would agree that all they want for their kids is just to be decent human beings and grow up with opportunity, right? Anything beyond that is just individual, you know, well, you're living in Tamarindo, so likely your kids are going to adopt surfing. It's just you become a product of your environment. I think that's kind of been the challenge for me leading into it as a parent, as a husband, as a man, as a brother, as kind of a person that a few people look up to for a valid opinion. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a leader in many spaces, but in the but just, when people ask me, usually if they come to me for something, they're going to value my input, and I appreciate that. And I still bring a more traditional kind of, how do I word this? Kind of like an old school mentality. Like, I'm not opposed to being stern with my kids. I'm not, because I do feel there is validity in that. Sometimes a steel hammer is better than a rubber mallet to a degree, right? And I'm using a metaphor because that's the best analogy I can think of. But it's true, right? Because there are certain things that you need to set the tone early and effectively, because certain things just aren't acceptable. And that's my daughter's job. That's her position in life right now. She needs to really teeter on that edge of what can I not get away with, and that's different for everybody. Some people have a lot less tolerance and a lot less flexibility with that. Other people are free spirited. They let them do their thing, run around naked, whatever it may be, and that's no problem. It's just, I don't think that everything needs to be soft and kind of met with an accepting kind of pillow type approach, and that's been something that I grew up on. That is, it was survival of the fittest. I'm the youngest of three, and not really a lot of male leaders in my life, so it was just observing my brothers, and I pushed them to their limits at times, because that's when I found out this is where the line is. If I cross it, eventually you come to the realization that if I cross it, you kind of know what you're getting in for. And if you get away with it, cool, and you can be like, yeah, I snaked one in there. And then other times you're like, damn, I just put your head down and you're like, no. So I really want to teach my daughter that, right? I want her to explore those limits, but then there's that inevitable day where she wants to bring it to the limit, and my limit is way down here, right? Whether it's sleep or business or just stress as being a dude. We're required to be leaders in our lives. We don't really have a choice. To be a high value conscious man, you have to show up. You have to do it, right? There's no excuses. You can't say I didn't get a lot of sleep because other people get a lot of sleep. You can't say you don't feel good because there's people that are in way worse situations than you. You got to do it. So there's those days, and today was that day where my daughter's like, let's explore the limits, and I'm just like, I'm at the basement. I'm like, damn. I was like, that's not good. So it's all good. I'm gonna go pick her up. We're gonna have a great evening and have lots of fun. So yeah, those days come and go, and it feels like a lot of people in our inner circle right now are experiencing that. Is everything just seems to be on the up, and I don't know if it's just we're wanting to get out of this winter lull. I know it's not winter for you, Trev, but winter lull kind of coming up into this spring, summer. You want to come into it with full momentum, enjoy it to the fullest. And I don't know, man, I think I need to pull back the brakes a little bit sometimes, because you definitely get ahead of yourself.
Yep. Well, we're pumped and thrilled to see you in Costa Rica pretty soon enough here, brother. Sorry, Trev, go ahead there.
Oh, I was just going to say that the first thing that came to mind about, are you a leader or any of us leaders? I think the answer is always 100%. I interviewed a guy on my podcast once who said that we're all influencers. We're all influencing somebody. And we see it in our kids most notably, right? They look at us, and when they see us face challenging situations, and like even take your situation this morning that was maybe a bit conflictive too, and there was a lot going on, and you were joking around about how you had blood on your hands. Not literally, anybody that's watching this, but like well, he did actually, but it was because he was preparing a pork roast.
Yeah.
But it's these kind of conversations too, where we can go, man, that was a rough morning, but I'm about to, pick up my daughter here this afternoon, and we're going to reset the tone. I'm going to approach her from a place of love, and we're going to find out, we're going to have conversations about boundaries and values and that type of thing. And at the end of the day, though, she's going to know that daddy loves her, and that he's going to always show up for her. Yeah. And lead by example. And I think that's one of the things that kind of fuses all of us together in the inner circle, is that we're all committed to just being that person, a person of influence, a person that if we looked at ourselves, we would admire ourselves. I know that's what really drives me.
Yeah, I love that, Trev, because that's a very true statement, right? Is I think we're able to have weak moments, and we're able to have moments where, could I have handled things better? Sure, but I don't think the underlying message ever changes. Whether I'm stern or I'm soft with my daughter, at the end of the day, it's either I'm trying to teach her a life lesson or I'm trying to address a situation. It's, the tonality of my approach will always change, right, depending on my day and depending on her action. But at the end of the day, the desired outcome is always the same. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, having different approaches, because I've experienced it with my daughter that when she's not around me or my wife, she's a different child, because any message that's coming that has the same desired outcome has a different approach, and so she gravitates to that a little bit better, right? We have this authoritative, kind of parental, innate, protective kind of desire, and these other people have it just from this is either my job, or I gravitate to this child, so I want to see them get better. So there's those different messages that come from different places, and it's that yin and yang, right? It's you can't have one without the other, and it takes a village. It really does, right? That old saying. My daughter wouldn't be where she's at without her teachers, and then my daughter wouldn't be where she's at, or the girl that she is, if it wasn't how my wife and I raise her. Right, and that's the objective. Is I don't want her to be a shadow of us in terms of, or a reflection of us. Sorry, but I want her to have her own personality. But I want to give her the foundation. That's all I can do, is give her a solid foundation of my beliefs, my values, my desired adult outcomes for her, and then let her run with it. And that's all I can do, right? And that's my goal. That's my method. It's just, again, it's different, like you said with your kids, right? Is you learn that, if they're sick for a certain amount of time, then they kind of learn, hey, I can kind of get away with this, or hey, let's have ice cream cake at 11 o'clock at night, or they're always pushing those boundaries, and that's their responsibility, right? They have to do that, because if they don't, and you keep them in a box, as we've seen over COVID, it's fucking detrimental. You can't, we're social beings, we're human beings, we're seekers. And when you put them in a fucking box and you tell them don't do anything, well, that's just terrible. And you're starting to see it now in schools. You're starting to see, kids are having disciplinary issues. Kids are having, emotional outbreaks because they've never experienced this, because in their most crucial years, they weren't able to do that. And that's not right. It has to be consistent. You have to continually let them push the boundaries until they can do it on their own, and they'll either deal with the repercussions or they'll celebrate the rewards. It just depends on which avenue they want to go down.
And the journey continues here. So here we are about to embark on this experience here in Costa Rica, which no doubt will be an adventure and amazing conversations and connection, and it just becomes another anchoring piece into the journey, because that's, I think, the one thing that's exciting the most for both Mike and I, and you as well too, is just knowing that there's no real end destination on this aside from just living our best lives, being the best people that we can possibly be, and lifting everybody up around us that comes across us, right, based on how they see us showing up. So dude, let's wrap on that. This was awesome. I love chatting with you. I love hearing you express your passion for all things in life that's brought you to this point, and where it's going to take you in the future too, because it's exciting, man. Like, who knows, right? Like your life, we'll do this again, and I'm pumped to hear where your life's at in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months. Because look at how much has changed just in the 12 months from when we first met.
Yeah, man.
It's really insane, really. But at the same time, it's all intentional, because we went and created it, right?
Yeah, and that goes for you guys too, right? I mean, I definitely, just want to plug you guys a little bit in the sense that, again, that message has been consistent. It's never wavered. You guys have been showing up consistently, even though the metaphorical fire is going on in your guys' lives, and that's awesome, right? Because it also helps too when the struggles that you guys are having, when they compound. What it does is, well, if they can do this, I'm not there, and those days where you guys are dealing with more, but you're leading by example, it motivates and inspires others to do the same. And then the converse is the same, where on days that you guys might be struggling, you're like, man, today's just not that day, but yet men in the inner circle are celebrating triumphs, handling a lot. I'm sure there's a little bit of personal pride where you guys, and you should really take ownership of, I had a part in that. That's awesome. That's rewarding as men, as brothers, as leaders, because that's the thing, is all you can do is just spread the wealth of knowledge and experience and hope people, gravitate to it. And I think people have. I know I have, especially. So that's just, again, another kudos to you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. It's been amazing to watch, and we're all in it together. That's it, day by day.
That's right. All right. This was fun. We'll pick it up and we'll definitely do this again, Alfred. Thanks so much, brother, for doing this with us.
Okay. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Cheers, brother.